Hey everyone, welcome back to Beat the Sheet, an Xbox Game Pass challenge. As always, I'm your host Andy Wood, and I'm joined by my co-host Josh.
Well, hello there.
So, big episode this week. This is our 1 year anniversary of Beat the Sheet. We started this exactly this time last year, and even before that, we actually were doing this ridiculous challenge for about half a year even before that. So, it's been a big run, and you know the question we kind of started this whole thing off with was, can you beat all of Game Pass? Can you beat the Sheet? And what are your thoughts on that, Josh?
You can't. You can't beat all the sheet.
You can't
impossible.
do it.
It's impossible. And with that in mind, after an entire year of attempting this challenge, 18 months, including before the podcast, it's time to call it quits. We can't do it. We've given it a bloody good go. But I'm afraid to say we need to park this show and move on to greener pastures.
Exactly. You know, it's not all bad news today, though, because we are actually launching a new show, a new podcast, which will be coming to you before this podcast closes out. So our new show is going to be we're billing it as a variety gaming podcast. There's going to be, an episode every week as we do now, but each month we'll have a set group of episodes. So you're going to be getting a ranking special every single month. We've always had a lot of really good feedback on our crazy kind of live ranking episodes of this show. So yeah, every month there'll be a ranking episode where we do something like that. And obviously now that we're not tied to Game Pass, these rankings can be about anything really in the world of gaming. So it gives us a lot more ability to really branch out and do some pretty ridiculous rankings lists.
Yeah, exactly. You know, we're already looking at trying to rank all of the Sonic games, for example, which is an undertaking very close to my heart. But away from just the ranking episodes, we're also going to be trying to have an evolving list of the greatest retro games of all time. We all own those mini consoles. Nobody ever plays them, but we're actually going to try to, every single month, beat one of the games, have an evolving list as we go through them all, so we can actually kind of eventually define what is one of the greatest games of all time. So that's going to be a lot of fun as well.
Absolutely. I mean, that's basically going to be one of our ranking episodes, except it goes on forever because every month we will play one game from the mini console, which we'll be announcing in advance as well. So if anyone wants to play along, they'll be able to grab the console, have a game of it, and follow along with our thoughts on it. As well as that, we are going to be doing a Games of the Month show. So if you're a fan of our reviews and, us talking about Game Pass reviews currently, we will be covering all the big games of the month with reviews for them. So, we'll actually be able to play those games now because we don't have to play a bunch of 6 out of 10s in Game Pass, which would be quite nice. And we'll also be diving into some backlog titles in that episode as well. So just anything we've played in that month really that we think is, worth mentioning, worth giving a go to. If we played some absolute trash, I'm sure we'll mention that too. One of these days we will play Balan Wonderworld. You just know it's going to happen.
Yeah, exactly. And there will be the occasional Game Pass game as well. We're not going to unsubscribe to the service. We'll just be cherry picking the games we want to play in Game Pass rather than, for example, Surviving Mars. We'll be playing enjoyable games. Like, there's a very good chance this week's episode has Maneater. We might have actually played that and reviewed it. So it's the kind of game we'd have an interest in. And away from that, the final show of the fall we'll be doing every single month is essentially a games club, almost like a book club membership, where we'll be digging into hidden gems, notable games from the annals of gaming's past and very much present. There'll be some garbage, there'll be some absolute classics, there'll be some very much in the middle, where we both review the game, talk about what we like about it just on its own merits, but also discuss the wider story around the title itself. So, a lot of games have an interesting history to them. A lot of games have far more going on than what just appears in code. We see it almost like a magazine episode. There'll be features and news. All of it will be built in to just one game where, once again, it'll be announced ahead of time. So you can play along with us if you so wish to. So, there's a lot of very fun things which we have planned for that new show. But we're not just stopping this dead. Beat the Sheet isn't going away just yet. We've got a big month of content lined up, which we hope are going to really send this show out with a bang.
Yeah, absolutely. We are planning to do our arguably biggest and most stupid features to date in the next few weeks. So to give you a bit of a taste of what's coming up, we are going to have the Beat the Sheet World Cup, which is going to be running alongside the Euros, European football. Obviously, I realize all our listeners aren't from Europe, but there is a big football competition coming up, and we will be doing the World Cup version. So we have got teams made up of all the different countries based on games we could actually find on the sheet. And they're going to be battling it out to determine who is the Beat the Sheet World Champion. We're going to be having an E3 special. Of course, E3 is coming up, huge event. Just an insane amount of news is going to come out of that. So yeah, we'll be covering all the big E3 conversation, all the big news, discussing, what we loved about the show, what we hated about Ubisoft, that kind of stuff. And then we also have the top 50, the Beat the Sheet top 50. This is going to be just a huge undertaking. We've gone through everything that is available on our sheet, so everything that's been in Game Pass throughout the history of this show, and we're going to be running you down a top 50 of the absolute best games that can be found in this challenge. And also we'll have the final ever Beat the Sheet Sheeties Awards. So we ran this award show over the Christmas break last year. And yeah, it was a lot of fun, a lot of stupid awards, a lot of just silly nonsense. And yeah, we're going to be closing this out with the final ever Sheety Awards. So lots of, one final opportunity for these games and these developers to win such an important industry award.
Exactly. So it's a big month of Beat the Sheet. We're not done with the podcast entirely. Part of the reason that we are going away is because we feel like we are repeating ourselves on this show. Games which came in a year ago are now leaving. You've all kind of heard our thoughts on a lot of these games already. So this is a chance for us to round up what we haven't spoken about, give some time to the games which have just not cropped up, and also just leave you with a giant top 50 list of the best games to play. That will take most people about 18 months to get through. So, you'll have no shortage of future content to be able to look back on and enjoy. So, sad that it's coming to an end, but we're certainly going to make sure it goes out with a bang.
Absolutely, yeah. Big specials coming up. And then, as we said, really excited for the new show. So we do hope you'll all check that out too. And yeah, so anyway, let's get past that then and talk about this week's show. So on this week's show, we're going to need a bigger podcast as we sink our teeth into Maneater. We try our very best to cover approximately 5,000 Kingdom Hearts games. And the Sonic Central 30th anniversary show reminds us of our favorite video on all of the internet, which we will we'll definitely get to later on.
It's a wonderful, wonderful video, but we do have Game Pass games to talk about. We have played them. Shall we get right into it?
Yeah, let's get rolling.
Okay, so there have been 3 new additions to the Xbox Game Pass service this week, and they are Conan Exiles, Maneater, and MechWarrior 5 Mercenaries. So, what did you make of these 3 titles?
I kind of think this is it's a good and also incredibly Game Passy week, like no big mad heavy hitter games, just a bunch of kind of weird, underappreciated titles. Maneater is reasonably new and kind of had a bit of buzz about it, but I feel like it didn't maybe sell as well as it could have. MechWarrior 5 is a revival of a old mech series. This is the first game in that series for over 20 years, and it's been on PC for a while, but this is the first ever this is the day one console launch, so first time you can play it on the Xbox. It's in Game Pass, which is always good. And then Conan Exiles, just a big weird survival game. So I don't know, I think it's a very Game Pass week, just kind of middle of the road but interesting titles.
Yeah, I think there's some interesting ones here. MechWarrior 5 being the kind of game that nobody is really going to pay money for, surely. I don't believe there's that big of an audience for this title, but as part of your Game Pass subscription, it definitely has some novelty value. And the Big Shark game, everybody wants to play the Big Shark game. I think we was all hyped when we saw that was announced all those years ago. So yeah, it's a pretty cool week, and Conan the Barbarian remains a terrible property.
Yeah.
But it's now got a game, so thank God for that. You've played a little bit of Conan Exiles. It's got a giant download. It's all online, so it's not a game, and it's about Conan the Barbarian. So if you want my score without me even playing it, 1. So why don't you tell me what you make of it, though? Because you actually gave some time to it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, this game is 100 gig, so you need good internet really to bother getting that, especially when you're only going to play it for a couple of hours anyway. It's not worth straining your internet for this one. But yeah, look, Conan Exiles. This is basically a survival game with crafting elements, which, I'm bored already just saying those words. That's absolutely not my kind of bag. And yeah, you start off, you're literally just hung up on like a cross, like left there to die. Someone chops you down and they're like, right, get going then. And you start with basically nothing. You literally just start as just a naked person with no weapons, no armor, no equipment. And yeah, you just got to go from there. You got to, gather food, find water to drink, punch monsters and punch trees and stuff to get resources to build things like clothes and bed sheets and all that kind of stuff. And you go from there to, you build up and explore this, frankly, quite big and diverse map. There's quite a lot of stuff going on. There's like snowy areas, volcano areas. There's all these different elements on the map to go to. And there's kind of a story goal hidden away in here. You have like a bracelet on your wrist, which you can't get off without doing some kind of magic crap. And the idea is you need to go to different points on the map and do these big grand questy type things to get the bracelet off, so you can leave this wasteland area. Like, apparently you're trapped in because of the bracelet. So that's kind of what you're meant to do, but really that's not, nothing happened. You just leave and then the game's over. So no one actually does that. The game is intended to be something where you build big places full of, buildings and different resources and items and all that kind of stuff. So it's fine for what it is. I really struggle to rate these games because I don't have any fun doing that kind of stuff. I don't want to look at a crafting recipe that needs like 20 items and then go out and do a bunch of obscure stuff to build those items. It's not for me. And I definitely tried with this, but it hasn't changed my mind on that. I think what's there is fine. If you're a fan of that sort of stuff, you actually might get some enjoyment out of it. The combat's kind of fine for a game like this. It's like a janky Dark Souls, if that makes sense. Like, you kind of fight in the same way, you dodge in the same way, but obviously it's nowhere near as sharp and tight as a Souls game. So that's all right, better than expected. As I said, I think the world is better than I expected it as well. Nice and diverse, quite a lot going on. Another thing which might interest people is if you open up a single player game of this, because it's kind of, you can play online in a room full of people, or you can just play on your own. If you play on your own, you can basically make yourself an admin of your own game and then just cheat. You can just cheat everything. You can put God mode on, you can fly around, you can spawn any item and any enemy directly in front of you. So you can do all kinds of wacky nonsense. That will also help you get basically all the achievements if that's something you care about. But also it's just a daft way to maybe have a bit of stupid fun with it if you can stomach the download size. So it's got its positives for people who like the genre, but it's not for me personally. One thing I do have to mention before I move on from Conan, though, because I find this absolutely hilarious. So there was a big thing with this game when it came out that it had like full frontal nudity, basically, and you could just make a guy with a big swinging dick or a naked woman or whatever. And so it turns out they've actually locked that out of when you download the game by default, you can't have the nudity on. Everyone has some form of clothing on. And I looked it up because I was like, that's weird. I remember all the stories about this game being about, just walking around with a dick going around. And I looked it up, and apparently America won't allow the nudity to be in this game. So the actual release of the game doesn't have any nudity in. And you have to go on the Xbox store or the PlayStation store, wherever you get in this game, and download a free DLC item, which is just called region specific DLC. And all that file is just nudity. And apparently you can't get that file in America. America have no way to download the digital video game boobs. They're not allowed them. But everyone else in the world can have that if they really want. It's completely pointless because literally within about 2 minutes of the game, you should have some armor on and some clothing on. But if you really need 2 minutes of video game nudity, then you can get the region specific DLC, provided you are not in America, who are apparently scared of video game dick. So there you go. That's Conan.
Let me tell you, 2 minutes of digital nudity is all I need if you get eye drift. Look, it sounds like a perfectly serviceable survival crafting game. Love the idea of you punching a tree. Do you actually have to punch a tree to get wood, or do you need a weapon?
Well, you can eventually get an axe, but at first, before you have an axe, you're just punching anything. It's standard like crafting game stuff at this point, right? Minecraft kind of started it. You just punch everything. It's just the way it goes.
Oh, fantastic stuff! Fantastic stuff. Love the nudity patch. Wish they came up with a slightly more enjoyable name than regional specific DLC. But at the same time, that's the kind of seedy thing I could see the developers of this game opening a trench coat and saying, "Would you like some regional specific DLC?" Fantastic. Okay, let's talk about our next game, MechWarrior 5 Mercenaries. So big giant mechs Fins go boom, fins go smash. What did you make of it?
Yeah, big mech game. As I said, the series has been gone for ages, 21 years since the last one. And yeah, it's a big mech game, Josh. You have big robots. You walk around with your big robot. You fire like all kinds of rockets, lasers. Big heavy weaponry into a lot of the early missions are just stuff like tanks and helicopters, which go down quite easily. But before long, you'll be fighting enemy mechs as well, which is quite fun. There's a lot of like kind of thought put into how to fight them as well, which is quite nice. Like each body part on the mech has its own kind of health that you can see. So like, maybe you're fighting a really fast enemy mech, but it's one of its legs is really badly damaged. If you keep on that leg, you will be able to blow it up, and then its ability to move will just be completely shot because it's only got one leg now. So stuff like that. There's some thought put in there, which is quite good. I would say though that the movement in this game is real weird and takes quite a while to get used to. So you actually control your mech by basically the left stick controls his legs. So you turn his legs with the left stick and then you push forward and back to move forward and back. But the right stick controls where you're aiming the torso, which is where you're using all the weapons. And they're completely independent of each other. So it's like you're kind of aiming your camera off to the side to try and shoot someone. And with the left stick, you're controlling the legs to go off in a completely different direction, which isn't towards the camera. It's weird, and it takes a bit of learning to get used to. But I understand why they've done it. It kind of gives them a way of letting you be quite diverse with the way you play. If you want to target someone but move off to the side at the same time, it does let you do that. But it definitely takes a bit of learning to get used to that. So yeah, just good, simple shooty mech action, to be honest. There's not a lot of negatives I really have for it in the first kind of couple of hours I've played, other than the fact that being that it's a mech game, it is a bit slow. You're not running around here. You are in a big giant mech the size of a building. And sometimes that can be a bit slow and plodding. It can take a bit of time to get to objectives. When you fight the enemy mechs as well, that can also be a little bit slow because both sides, you and the enemy, have an enormous amount of health. So it can feel like you're just, layering all of your weapons at the thing for like minutes. And it takes a bit of time to really feel like you're having much of an effect on it. But, again, it goes both ways. You also have quite a lot of health, quite a lot of sustainability. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with this one. I think if you like your mech games, this is definitely worth a look. I've seen nothing on it which suggests to me it's a bad mech game. But similarly to Conan, I guess, I'm not too sure this is for me. I think it's just a little bit too slow and plodding.
It's certainly a niche title, isn't it? I didn't get to spend too much time with this, partly due to the fact I spent most of my week and weekends taking on another niche pursuit, which is reading Kingdom Hearts lore on the internet until about 3 a.m. with a giant whiteboard behind me trying to piece it all together. So certainly a lot of my time got took up with that. But I do know, reading reviews and a little bit of background on this title, that this is the return of single player to this franchise. For a very long time, it'd been multiplayer only. So how does the single player component of this stack up? Is it fairly generic, or have they come up with some pretty interesting ideas?
I would lean more towards saying it's quite generic. Again, based on the first sort of 2 to 3 hours here. But you basically, you're in a hangar, you walk up to someone and talk to them. They give you a contract. You go and do that. Now you're back in the hangar. You go and talk to them again. They give you another contract. And even the missions as well. I'm not feeling a big story drive with this game. And I've read and sort of checked out other content based on the game, and I'm hearing that kind of carries through a lot of it. Like a lot of the missions you go out to do on the campaign just feel like standalone individual missions for the sake of setting you out on a mission. There's no big kind of narrative thrust behind the game that's really pushing you ahead to do these things. So yeah, you really do have to be into the gameplay itself. I don't think anything about the campaign is going to be, it's not going to hook you in on any other level other than if you really like playing mech games, simply enough.
I suppose the final thing I want to grill you on is that any form of mech title, to me, mechs both in film and anime and whatever other medium you wish, the entire point of it is the scale, that they feel huge, that they're much larger than the cities surrounding them, than the freak monsters which are trying to kill them. Does this game capture that feeling? That's, to me, it's hardest in a video game because you need to zoom out your camera in a way where you have full scope of what's around you. So in many ways, the mech can feel quite small. Does the game get around that issue, or is there perhaps a bit of a size problem?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's having problems with its size, to be honest. The issue is that a lot of the levels, at least early on, are taking place in reasonably barren places. You're on like a big kind of frost level or like frost planet in one of them, and then a bit later on, you're on kind of more traditional grassy kind of hilly areas. But other than kind of the odd enemy base that's like in the middle of these areas, there's not a lot of life to the rest of the field. So I feel like, maybe when you're in front of that base and you can see a tank on the floor and it's obviously tiny, or you see a helicopter in the sky and that's clearly a lot smaller than you get a bit of a sense of it then. But I didn't really get the feeling, there's not enough life around you to really sell you on this idea that like you are a big hulking massive monster. It's just, I don't know. You look at stuff like and I know it's a totally different genre. It's not really fair to compare them, but you look at stuff like Titanfall, and Titanfall really sells its scale to you by actually having on foot sections. I think that's what really sells it, right? You play as the pilot for a bit on the ground, and then you jump into the mech, and you're like, Jesus, I'm now massive. But I don't know, like that game nails that sense of scale. You call in a Titan from the air, and it's just this massive thing that comes down, and it's just everyone's looking up at it and stuff. And because this game has no real reference point other than these odd little patches of enemy bases, I don't know. I don't feel big and powerful because there's no comparisons really around for you to look at and think like, wow, yeah, I'm huge, So yeah, definitely got its size problems.
Sounds like it needs to download a bit of regional specific DLC to solve that problem.
That'll get me going for 2 minutes.
Let's move on to our next title, Maneater. So This is a simulation shark game, which the developers dubbed a shark PG with the R capitalized. And it's a funnier joke in theory than it is in practice, but I admire where they were going with it. But this is a shark RPG, and that is a cool idea for a video game. You do get to chomp down on humans. But does it make the most of that premise, or does it quite quickly start to peter off?
I mean, look, right, Maneater, I would say, massive plus for it first is that this game feels fun instantly. I would say, like there's not many games. I mean, I've played quite a lot of games this week, which we'll be getting to more of them soon, where it's taking hours for me to find anything interesting to do. Whereas this thing, you pretty much right from the top, you start off, you're a little, well, there's a little tutorial mission, but let's go into the main game. You start off, you're a little baby shark, and get eaten. You got to start eating some stuff. You're eating some like small things like little turtles and stuff. You're growing bigger. And that carries through the whole game. This whole point of this game is you eat stuff that's around your level or maybe slightly above to level up and grow bigger and bigger and get larger through the game. And yeah, that goes right from the start. It's already fun then. And it maintains that pace for the most part through the game, I would say. It definitely does have issues with variety. There's no getting around the fact that in Maneater, you'll spend the first half an hour, as I said, eating stuff around your level to get bigger. And then 6 hours later, you'll be a big, massive shark and you'll be eating things around your level to get bigger. That it doesn't change. That's still the same thing. It just happens to be that now maybe you're eating like a whale rather than a tiny little carp. Like you're not eating the fish detectives. But it's just, I don't know. I did find it really fun though. That's the thing. It doesn't change. It doesn't, nothing different happens throughout the kind of 7-ish hours you'll spend going through this game. But it's just a very unique kind of just complete turn your brain off level enjoyment. If you just settle down and just chomp away, it's kind of fun. And it just, I don't know, it carried me through.
Yeah, there's a lot to like about this game. You're very right in the sense that it's instantly fun. The first time you press the chomp button and the actual feedback of the chomp, despite the fact there's no real rumble to it, feels quite forceful. Yeah. I feel like I'm really crushing through bone. And that's quite an enjoyable thing, a particular turtle shell, even better so, because you eat the damn thing's whole. You leave nothing to chance. And there's something very enjoyable about that. And the best time you'll have with Maneater is the first time you put it on. And I would say to anybody who wants to play this game, make that first session last as long as it possibly can. Don't play this for 30 minutes and then come back to it. Try to carve out 2 hours of time, 3 hours of time, and just really commit to this game in that first playthrough, because you are onto a serious game of diminishing returns after you switch this console on, because you'll sit down, you'll do something else, you'll come back to it, and then the realization that, oh God, I really am just doing the same thing over and over again really starts to hit. It would be better, and a lot of video games are essentially just do the same thing over and over again, but developers try to hide it. Maneater's devs make so little effort to hide the fact you're doing the same thing. It's almost fantastic. Every single new area that you go to, there's about 7 different areas, all of which pretty much look the same, so it doesn't massively matter. But there's essentially 7 different areas with a theme. Good luck trying to find it. But each one will say, eat 10 types of this fish 3 times. Go eat some humans 3 times. Go kill the apex predator. It's the exact same mission in every single area. And you start to just think, God, couldn't you like put like a race sequence in or just something to vary up the pace of this title? But they don't. They are stubbornly committed to the formula that they created, for better and on the whole, I'd say for worse.
Yeah, that's very true. Like you said, that is literally the exact, like, there's no variation to that. That is the exact mission structure that happens in all 7 parts of the map. You do those missions, you move into the next part of the map, they happen again. That is the whole game. There's nothing else here. The only other thing really is that if you eat a lot of humans, you kind of build up a Grand Theft Auto style, like, alert meter. And when that fills up, a kind of special hunter will come and try and kill you. But realistically, they just suck. You just kind of jump up, grab them, they're beaten. You unlock some powers that way, which is something to do, I guess. But it's not an engaging loop. Like, it's kind of something that's just ticking over in the background while you're doing the main story. And, if you want to actually get through the whole like murderer's row of hunters that are going to come and get you, you kind of just have to sit and grind out some quite tedious human killing, which, you start the game off and that seems like it's going to be super fun. And it is super fun for a while. But eventually, a game that makes me bored of chomping people with a shark, that's not a great look. I don't want to be thinking, oh, Christ, I'm going to have to grind out some human eating for the next like hour to unlock the final hunter man. It's just not, it's not a great experience in terms of the structure of the game. But again, going back to, I said earlier that this takes about 7 hours. It doesn't outstay its welcome. You can beat this whole game in like 2 sittings, really, if you want to. I did. I beat it in 2 sittings, and I enjoyed it for what it was. And that kind of checks out as well with even the 100% in this game. If you wanted to, the goals for doing that, you basically just jump back in and find a few collectibles, really, across each area. So it's an infinitely completable game. I was looking at the achievement stats for this actually, and I think it was something like 32% of people beat the last boss, and about 17% of people basically collect all the collectibles. So it's a really impressive attach rate for doing the whole game. And again, I think that's a testament to the fact that it's a short game, and it's just a bit of a box ticking exercise, to be honest. It almost reminds me, and this is a ridiculous comparison, but it reminds me of how I kind of approached Spider-Man Miles Morales on PS5. Like, it's quite a small map, but like, you've just got these collectibles on the map and you can see where they all are, and you can just swing around the city, just ticking them off one by one. And it's like, it's really easy and laid back and chilled to do that, which made that a game that was really easy to kind of 100%. And Maneater is a similar thing. I mean, it's nowhere near as fun to traverse, obviously, but it's a kind of similar pattern of collectibles where, it's all on the map and you just need to just swim around and grab them. And when you feel like you don't want to put a ton of brain power into a video game, that's kind of ideal. I kind of like that.
Yeah, there certainly doesn't require a lot of force, and there is a lot of joy to be had just seeing numbers tick up as you get closer and closer to completing an area and moving on. I would say that, yes, the game doesn't outstay its welcome. It has a very big lull, I found, in the middle when the realization you're doing the exact same thing really hits you. But one thing that the game does do, and you alluded to it there, when you defeat these hunters, and you do have to grind, as mentioned as well, to do that, and that's a bit miserable. But when you do defeat them, you do get these power-ups. There's essentially 2. You either become an electric shark or a bone shark. I don't think there's really any variety beyond that. That's a little disappointing. I wish there was more I could do to, edit this shark. But those 2 power-ups are quite fun. And once you are fully leveled up and you've really put some points into it, pumped in some RPG points to become this monster shark, and you're like teleporting with electricity through the air, that's kind of cool. And the game picks itself back up again for its end because you're so overpowered by that point. You're so ridiculously strong. You're just chomping on other sharks, eating them in essentially 1 or 2 bites, destroying entire orcas in a couple of bites, and, smashing boats left, right, and center. The destruction elements start to become quite enjoyable again.
Yeah.
So there's a real curve to this game. There's a big lull in the middle for me, but it will probably finish on a high note. And that may be enough to leave quite a favorable impression in people's minds, but you do need to work to get to that. I will say the actual controls of this game, on the whole, it controls pretty well. The movements of the shark is pretty satisfying. It's not too difficult. It moves with enough pace to not feel like it's a slog to get around the environments. At times, it's a bit annoying that there's just not a permanent dash button. You have to keep pressing it to rebuild speed. And maybe I could have done with just upping the shark speed a couple of notches. But controls pretty well. I'd say the camera in combat is a little bit finicky. It loses track of where you are quite easily. Environments start to get in the way. Keeping a lock on a particular target, you can lock on, but it only locks on for 1 second before it locks off again. And it's a very strange system they've got there. So that's a little annoying and perhaps just a nitpick for me, but you chomp by pressing the trigger in this game. And that's quite satisfying because, triggers have like a mouthy kind of feel to them. But you have to chomp a lot and you'll never stop pressing down on the trigger. And that's quite tiring. You usually hold the trigger. You don't repeatedly press it all the time. And you do in this game. And it can actually, after a couple of hours of play, I found my finger started to hurt with all the chomping I was doing. And that doesn't happen to me. So that's interesting to say the least.
Yeah, man, I was exactly the same. That right trigger like clicking, you are doing it so often that it does eventually just start to ache quite a bit because no other game has you pressing it that often. As you said, every kill you're pretty much chomping about 5 or 6 times, and usually when you're traversing around Maneater, you're just chomping. Like even if you're just killing little fish on the way to the big thing you're going to do next, you're just chomping constantly, and it does get quite exhausted. It really does. Totally agree with you on the combat as well. The combat's a bit shaky particularly because of the camera. I just gave up on using that lock on system. I just did the camera myself, which isn't particularly easy, but I found it just got in my way more than anything when I tried to use the lock on. But yeah, as we said, getting past that though, I just think this is just stupid fun. It's all it is. It's just a big stupid fun game. It does have these issues like a complete lack of variety in missions. The combat's obviously a bit shaky, and I do agree as well that 2 power-ups is not enough. Like you can't like market your whole game on this, genetically engineered freak shark thing, and then you just do bone or electric. Like even a third one might have just been just about enough for me to give it a pass, but 2 is really a poor amount of choice. But other than that, really fun little stupid game. We haven't even spoke about the kind of framing of this game narratively, which is quite fun. In that they basically treat your playing of the game like a nature documentary and have a voiceover kind of narrating your actions and your decisions, and if you escape from some hunters or if you go and just chomp a bunch of humans, you'll get this kind of like nature documentary dialogue, which is explaining why the shark would do that or some trivia about the shark. It's voiced by I forget his name, but I know he's Jerry in Rick and Morty. Which
it's Chris Parnell. It's Chris Parnell who was in Rick and Morty and also in Archer, and a very, very funny voice actor, and he does a fantastic job. In this game, he's very good.
Yeah, he absolutely nails it. It's a great performance. I would say I think his narration, like you come around to copies of the lines a bit too often, which is my only negative. Like it would have been nice if they had maybe twice as much of a script for him. I probably would have liked it more. But after you've collected like 5 collectibles, you'll collect a 6th one and he'll say the line that he said in one of the other ones. It does come up a bit too often, but nonetheless, great idea. Love the kind of unique idea of doing that, because anyone else I feel would have just not bothered with any kind of framing around this game, but just been like, you're a shark in the sea. Why would anyone be talking? But yeah, good stuff. That's pretty much all there is to this game. There's not a lot else to go into. It is very simple with what it's trying to achieve, and I think for the most part it does it. I came out of this giving it a 7 out of 10. I think I do agree with you, Josh. I think 2 sittings is probably the target for this game. If you split it over more, it'll be very hard to return to because you are just doing the same thing over and over again. But if you do just need something to just switch your brain off and just do some chomping, this is a really good choice.
Yeah, look, I like this game. I very nearly gave it a 5. During the lull, I was thinking this as 5 and all over it, but it picked up enough. And I do like the framing of, this National Geographic crappy, campy documentary, which has all the little stylistic touches as well on the screen, which I also like, next week on Maneater, and it's got like an 8/7 central kind of vibe. It's got all the little touches which I like about it. So it does a lot there, and it does work. So I ended up giving it a 6. I think it's well worth a play. Okay, moving on to our leaving soon titles. Now, these are scheduled to leave on the 31st of May, so that is very much today if you're listening to this when it comes out, and it's very much the past if you are not. So if you did wish to play these, you're going to have to buy them. But we'll list the games which did leave. It's Assetto Corsa, Kingdom Hearts 1.5 plus 2.5 HD Remix, Kingdom Hearts 2.8 HD Final Chapter Prologue, Surviving Mars, and Void Bastards. Now, last week, Andrew and myself covered Assetto Corsa. You touched on Void Bastards. I played a little bit of that this week. I completely agree with what Andrew says. I probably think it's just a little bit more boring than he made out, and he made it out to be real dull. So, it's not one for me.
Yeah.
But this week, we're going to focus on some Surviving Mars, and God help us, we're going to try and pick apart pretty much all the titles which are made up in these Kingdom Hearts compilations, and there's a lot. So we'll leave that for second, because we're going to need a good run at that one, and talk about Surviving Mars first off. So this is a simulation title where you're a city builder. Essentially, you're trying to build a colony on Mars, but there's a very heavy dollop of survival kind of mechanics being thrown into the mix as well here. So if you've ever thought, God, simulation games are really boring, but what I really want to do is add this really tedious underlayer to it as well, well, you're really going to enjoy this experience, buddy, because that's what Surviving Mars is.
Yeah, you are very much in luck. Yeah, as you said, look, this is like a city building game, but also a bunch of colony management stuff going on. I mean, I know these games have the fans, but we had a problem with, to kind of roll the clock back a bit. We played Jurassic World Evolution, which is a theme park game, and we just maligned the fact that they insist, like everyone else, on putting a bunch of power management into their game. You're making power stations, you're making like beams that have to go between your buildings and the power stations so that everyone has energy. Now, Surviving Mars also does that, but it goes a step further, because you've not only have you got to make power lines and make sure all the energy is connected to everything, you've also got to do that for like loads of other resources. You've got to make water stations and then make pipes that go between all the things that need the water. And those water stations need power, so they have to have the energy lines going to them. And then you've got to do the same with fuel. You've got a fuel one that does the same thing. You've got to do the same thing with oxygen. You've got to make sure the oxygen has power and the pipes take it to the domes that people live in. It's like, I get it, that all makes sense. That is stuff you would probably do if people lived on domes on Mars. But also, there's something to be said for streamlining really boring crap from games. I'm not actually managing a colony of people on Mars here. Like, if I was, I'd be quite bored. So maybe just trim it down a little bit. And then it even goes further than that. Like, honestly, before you even get to play this game, right, there's a tutorial, and it gives you a nudge. It's like, oh, you should really do that tutorial before you start playing, and you're thinking, yeah, that makes sense. I can spend half an hour on a tutorial. Well, welcome to this tutorial, which takes about 3 hours across 5 parts. Like, I mean, just unbelievably long, unbelievably tedious. And again, there's a ton of systems here. If people are, obsessive fans of these kinds of games, they might be absolutely in love with this. Like, you do need to do literally everything on this planet. I've only touched on the surface when I was talking about all those stupid pipes and cables and everything. Like, you've got robots that do some work for you, but they need to have a power station to charge at. You need to specifically tell them to like drop off resources at specific points for each resource and unload stuff and load stuff there. You got about 5 different types of like Mars rover type vehicles that all do different functions. This is all before you even get people to the planet. When you get people to the planet, you've then got layers and systems to do with the people and their traits and their like almost Sims style meters of how happy they are, how satisfied they are they eating enough. It's all that's there as well. And it's just, I don't know, man, it's really difficult to go into this game much without saying that you need some kind of like master's degree to be able to even understand how to play it. and then if you do get there, I'm not 100% sure how much fun you're going to have. I mean, I did the tutorial and kind of trudged away at a colony for a little bit, with all of the easiest settings on to make it as smooth as possible. And, it was existing, but I don't know. It's way too much stuff to manage and look after for me.
Yeah, look, these sort of titles, if you want to play it just based on the synopsis. If you want to build a colony on Mars and you have the mental capacity to be able to do so, then you're probably going to have a damn good time with this game. You're right, the tutorial goes on forever. It almost rivals Levelhead for the never-ending tutorial award at the final Sheeties in a couple of weeks' time. But there's just too much here, man. There's just too much going on. As mentioned, the electrical pylons, all the work just to set up things takes an absolute age. I will say there's a lot of quote-unquote realism here. There's only so much realism you can have when you're building a colony on Mars. But the locations you get dropped on are based on actual maps and, NASA shit about what is actually on Mars. There's probably a technical term, and I don't know. So you get
I think that's the one,
the real locations where there's different minerals around which you'll need to resource and farm. And, you might get hit by meteors if you're in a certain place, or tornadoes if you're in a different place, but you can put yourself in easier locations depending on how little you want your entire game to be ruined by one freak of nature event, which to me is absolutely none. But to some people, they love nothing more than dealing with a disaster in these games. That's part of the joy for some people. And you will have a lot of disasters to deal with, because if you do not have enough power to power up the oxygen supply, well, I've got bad news for you. Everyone is dead. And that's a lot of pressure to be having on a simulation game. Not even Sim City, where, trash will be piled up in the streets, has corpses strewn in the floor. But Surviving Mars is essentially saying that's what's going to happen if you don't get your shit together. And there's something cool about that. I kind of like that. You're aided in that by accepting contracts with different people. So if you expect one of the International Mars mission, they'll fund you to the moon and fortunately to Mars and back. But you can also, for example, pick a budget on the Paradox development budget, which is hilarious. So if you was an actual small game studio in Sweden, how much could you get somebody to Mars and back? I love that. That's very funny. So you can make this game as easy or as hard as you want to, but the core mechanics remain the same. And if you're not on board with that, if you're not willing to put the time and the effort in, you're just going to drop off this game real quick. So if you want to play it, you probably already know you want to play it. If you're anything like us, you're not going to get one around to it.
Yeah, that's exactly it, right? This kind of game, you have to be a fan, or you have to have some level of interest in this kind of style of game. It's these kind of games are one of the big problems that we run into on Beat the Sheet, really, aren't they? Because you try and review them, you try and cover them in a way that we can, but also, I hated my time with this game. I was incredibly bored. I was trying to kind of rush through it to get to other stuff, and that's the absolute worst way to play these kind of games. These games are designed for you to basically, like pencil this game in as your game for the month, right? And you work at it, you learn it, you understand the systems better. Maybe you do start playing on a higher difficulty with the lower the contracts with lower budgets, or when you bring colonists to your planet, maybe you start letting in a couple of dickheads to sort of spice things up a bit and try and manage their problems and deal with them. There's all that stuff there. There's all these layers to it. But I just think you've got to be you've got to be someone who wants to play it. So it's not really much use for me to sit here and tell you I'm bored, because it just ain't for me, So I've actually still came out of this one giving it a 6 out of 10, because I know that I'm just being miserable because it's a bit too dull for me. Like, everything that's there looks pretty good if you can figure it out and learn to understand it. And the footage I've seen online of people who have like thriving massive colonies, they look kind of stunning, to be honest. It's really cool seeing a fully like built up like result of where you can get with this game when you really learn it and really sort of nail, the whole colonization aspect of it. There's cool stuff you can do, but you just need to really commit.
Exactly. That's the thing with these games. For me, this sort of title is always something I would rather watch a video of somebody on fast forward, seeing how they built their game up to this point, so I can see how they got to utopia in 30 minutes while I eat a Mars bar or something like that. That's what I want from it. If you want me to actually sit down and play the game and learn its systems properly, then I'm afraid you're going to need to pay me, because this is a job game. And job games, as far as I'm concerned, if they don't come with a wage, then why would I do it? So, that's where I stand on this. I gave it a 5. 5 is my de facto score for any game that is just not for me, but I still need some level of it's my opinion. I wouldn't play it. So yeah, 5 out of 10. But if you want to play this game, if you want to play a simulation management game on Mars, and that is a cool premise, then you'll probably have a damn good time with this. But it's not one for me, dude. NASA can stick their rockets up their regional specific DLC pack. Okay, let's move on to the big boys of the show. So this is Kingdom Hearts. We'll start off with Kingdom Hearts 1.5 plus 2.5 HD Remix. Yep. Now, this game comprises of Kingdom Hearts Final Mix, Kingdom Hearts RE colon Chain of Memories, Kingdom Hearts 358 divided by 2 days, which I think I've made this joke before, but I think that's like 174 days. Kingdom Hearts, that's just HD remastered cinematics, by the way. You don't play the game. You just watch a movie of those 174 days. And then 179 days. Then you've got Kingdom Hearts 2 Final Mix. Then you've got Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep Final Mix. And then you've got Kingdom Hearts RE coded HD remastered cinematics. So there's 6 different bits of entertainment properties coalesced within this compilation, approximating about 100 hours of entertainment. It's a big boy game for big boys. So you've played actually more of this than anybody has any right to. What do you make of it?
Yeah, I've gave this a pretty good go. So we'll start out with Kingdom Hearts 1. We'll go through these in order as best we can. So Kingdom Hearts 1 Final Mix. So obviously this is the start of the series. This is remastered up to a reasonable standard. It's got a HD coat of paint on it, but you can still definitely tell it's an old game. The characters in particular, when they the way their mouths move when they talk and things like that, it's quite terrifying, actually. So you can definitely see the age on stuff like that. But look, Kingdom Hearts, really cool, unique idea the time it came out. For anyone who doesn't know, this is basically a series where it's a combination of all the different worlds of Disney combined with some elements from Final Fantasy. Like the game's full of Moogles, and there's different heroes from different Final Fantasy titles in there. And yeah, the kind of general flow of this is that you're in some weird world where all those things have been combined, and you jump from planet to planet, each of which is based on a different Disney IP. And you kind of just, you do a pretty simple mission there. You kind of walk through these areas, which are laid out very simply. You have to keep in mind this was obviously a PS2 title. It's quite old now. So each planet is basically just about somewhere between 10 and 20 of these kind of small contained rooms, and you walk through an exit to get to the next small contained room. It's fine for what it is. You get a bit of flavor of that Disney world. You get some nice Disney music in the background. The series on the whole, to be fair, has some fantastic music. Definitely something that's a highlight throughout the whole thing. But yeah, you're going to go through these 7 or 8 worlds. You basically end up doing what I'd have to say is just kind of like a stripped down, simplified version of that movie's storyline, with random ass Kingdom Hearts stuff going on in the background. That's just kind of how it works. So, you'll probably fight the big villain from that. Let's say Aladdin, for example. Aladdin, the whole story will happen. The final boss will be against Jafar and the kind of evil genie Jafar version. And then you'll finish that. Aladdin and Jasmine will be happy. And then also it just so happens that some Kingdom Hearts shit has happened as well. And then you jump off to the next Disney world. That's the structure that this game follows for the whole game. It's a bit simple. I'm not actually a huge fan of it. I kind of found that the novelty of it stuck with me enough that Kingdom Hearts 1 kind of landed for me. But obviously we'll get to the other 5,000 games soon. Like that structure, from what I can tell, stays the same through all the games I've played. You just go to a Disney world, you act out a really condensed 3-act version of that film, and a bit of Kingdom Hearts stuff happens, and then you leave. And that got real old for me by the second game, I would say. But this one, it kind of just about held together. Yeah, so that's what you got going on here. The combat it's serviceable for a PS2 game, I would say. It's very simple. Most of the game, you're just going to be tapping the A button to do a basic combo, and you'll do the odd magic spell. You got other characters with you. So like Donald and Goofy are with you for most of these games. And then depending on the Disney world you're in, characters from that game will also join you, and they'll just be fighting away doing their own special attacks and stuff. It's fine. It's probably quite impressive for the time, I would say. But it's kind of just enough to carry you through. So that's Kingdom Hearts 1. I gave this game you got anything else? Do you want to add to that?
I have played a bit of Kingdom Hearts 1 because I did have the very honourable intention of playing all these games months ago, and I did give a good 5 to maybe 8 hours into this title. And I agree with a lot of what you're saying there. There is a lot of joy in exploring these worlds, which are very heavily based on the movies. As you say, it's very derivative of what is within them. But going on to the combat, I think what's exciting about this game is at that time, Square had not done too many real-time RPG battle systems. Sure. It hadn't done many at all. So Kingdom Hearts, the original game, is quite revelatory in its own way. They moved away from turn-based battles. This could have very easily just been a standard, Square RPG from 5-6 years ago, which they did so well and still do very well.
Yeah.
But they moved away from that, and I think it suits what they're going for here. It is a little bit breezier. I mean, the story is bobbins, but the whole thing is it is breezier. It's a little bit more lighthearted. There's heaviness there, but I think the fact that you are swinging swords with Goofy and Donald Duck is kind of hilarious. It's very enjoyable. It's very fun. There's a lot of charm to this series. And I think anybody who hears the pitch, it's Square Enix mixed with Disney, if that doesn't spark a little bit of joy within you, then I don't quite know why you're playing this medium, because there's so much fun to be had in that concept. And to give Tetsuya Nomura his due, he does win a lot out of it. It feels strangely Disney, even though it very much isn't. And I don't think they have that much input in what's going on. I mean, why Mickey Mouse is the Grand Wizard of all this doesn't make any sense. He's got such a stupid voice. You can't have him delivering serious lines because he's Mickey Mouse. It's hilarious. It's absolutely fantastic. I love it. But, it's that sort of weird dick to me, which just makes these games tick for me. And certainly the first Kingdom Hearts, whilst the novelty is very fresh, will certainly help. But you're right, this is an old PS2 game now with old PS2 level design where you'll be routinely not entirely certain where you need to go.
Yes.
A theme that actually carries along through almost all of the Kingdom Hearts games. Give them their due. They remain resolutely confusing. But yeah, there's stuff to like here. I haven't finished it yet, but I do quite like this title.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Look, like I probably sound a bit more negative on it because I have since had to play 17,000 other Kingdom Hearts games. Like I actually played Kingdom Hearts 1 about half a year ago. And look, I came out of this giving it a 7 out of 10. So I did actually enjoy my time with it. I do think it's a really cool game. As I said, at this point, the novelty of going to these Disney worlds is still there. It's still really fresh and interesting to do that in a game. Like I really did enjoy it. The levels are a bit obtuse and awkward. There's no getting around that. You'll often find that you'll just walk through all the rooms that exist until something happens, because the game didn't quite make it clear what you were meant to do. But you'll get there. These worlds aren't very big, so it's easy enough to do that. But yeah, look, as I said, 7 out of 10, an interesting enough introduction to the series. It left me, interested in checking out the rest of them. So now let's move on to Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories. So this is a very strange one because this is a remaster of the PS2 version of this game. But the PS2 version of this game is a remake of a Game Boy Advance game. So you got some hoops to jump through here. And what I would say is I really wish they'd put the Game Boy Advance version in here, because I've seen screenshots of that and I've seen kind of the way the gameplay works. It's effectively a card-based battling game. And the Game Boy Advance one actually looks quite interesting, looks quite intriguing. You also get fun kind of chiptune Game Boy Advance style musical renditions of all the songs and stuff, which is nice. Whereas what they've done with this PS2 version is they've basically just asset flipped Kingdom Hearts 1. Like everything is the same. Like you go to all the same worlds in Chain of Memories. The only difference now is that And obviously this is right up your street, Josh. The difference here is that you basically put cards down to go into procedurally generated rooms based on that world. So it's a card game and basically procedurally generated, like roguelike-y style element stuff. And yeah, you're going up this the story. I mean, the story's nonsense, let's be honest. In this game, they've all lost their memories, and you're going up this big tower of memories, and each floor has one of the worlds from Kingdom Hearts 1 so that they can asset flip it and steal all this stuff. And yeah, that's you do the same thing. You watch 2 or 3 cutscenes in each one, and you just, fight the big boss at the end based on that movie. It's real tedious. I did not like this game at all. Again, I think I might like the Game Boy Advance one, but the problem here is that, I've just played Kingdom Hearts 1. I don't want to look at all the same rooms, listen to all the same songs. Even the combat system. The combat system is basically Kingdom Hearts 1's combat system, but you have a deck of cards, and those cards are your attacks. So, like, you'll have like 30 cards in your deck, which are just swords, or keyblades, I should say. And when you press A on those, you'll do your sword attacks as if it's Kingdom Hearts 1, but you'll do 1 hit for each sword card that's there. And then, if you get to a spell card and press on it, you'll do a spell. So it's like if somebody got you to play the Kingdom Hearts 1 combat scheme, but like just weirdly like shot you in the kneecaps or something. It's like you're trying to do those moves, but they're all now determined on these stupid cards, and all the other enemies are around you just fighting as if it's a normal Kingdom Hearts game. So it's just really clumsy, really tedious. I massively disliked doing that. There's some elements of kind of grindy stuff going on as well as you get to the later parts of this game, because you use different cards to open doors, and you'll get to like doors later on where they'll be like, oh, you need a bunch of cards that add up to like a total of like 50 points, and you just won't have them. So you have to go off and go back to some procedural rooms to fight some enemies to get some cards. So it's kind of slowing you down there, really dragging its heels as well. Look, I just think this sucks. I think if somebody really wanted to play this, I would say either play the Game Boy Advance original, which I can't speak for, to be fair. I've not played it. I've just seen some footage on it and it looks more interesting. Or frankly, if you really must try and figure out the Kingdom Hearts lore, because you'll need this game, because for some reason, every game's important in this story, then maybe just read about it online. I gave this one a 4 out of 10 in the end. I think it's trash.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. The card game did have me worried, and by all accounts, this isn't a particularly great one. So let's move on to 358 divided by 2 days. These are the remastered cinematics. Now, it's not the actual game. The actual game, I can't remember what system it came out on. Probably the DS.
This was I think this was a PSP one, maybe, or DS. It could be DS.
So of that handheld generation, if nothing else.
Yeah, so this is a handheld game. They've remastered the cinematics, which is, is somewhat, it's weird, this package, because you've got a game coming up later on, Birth by Sleep, and you've also got a game you're going to be covering later on, Josh, which was on the 3DS as well. So those are handheld games that they fully remastered. Whereas this one, you just get some cinematics. And I mean, first of all, I turned this game on without realizing it was just the cinematics. And after about 20 minutes, I was like, when am I going to play? and then I realized it was cinematics only. I was like, oh, for God's sake. But look, I mean, again, it's this problem that every Kingdom Hearts game, whether it's on a main console or handheld, or even a Japanese exclusive web game, they all have vital story elements in. So you need to know the story, which, so I guess it's somewhat useful they've put these cinematics in. Now, the problem is these cinematics kind of suck when they're the only thing you're watching, because what you basically get here, and I watched I watched about half of this before I tapped out and moved on. But basically, you get your 2 characters. You got this guy called Roxas, and you got this guy I forgot the name of, and they sit on a wall and they talk about what's going on in their nonsense Kingdom Hearts world. Then you get a page that has a wall of text on, which explains the level that you would have just played if you were playing the game. So you read that, you press A, and then you get another cutscene of Roxas and that guy sat on a wall talking. And that literally happens about 9 times in a row, is just cutting back to them both sat on a wall, just reminiscing about whatever happened on that mission. And that just sucks, right? That's not engaging. That's not interesting. I thought it would be like, I thought there'd be some other stuff mixed in. Like maybe there's some cutscenes that happen during the missions where where, you know, you'd get a bit more story there, or you'd see them fighting with someone. But it's literally just, as far as I could tell, them sat on a wall the whole damn time. And that's just, I just couldn't do it. So I watched half of it, and then I went on a wiki page and read about what happened in the rest of it, which I can't tell you because I forgot, because who could possibly care or keep up with the story? There's just too much. There's too much going on. There's too many people. Yeah, so that's that. I think that's one to skip as well. I don't think there's any reasonable reason why you should watch those cinematics. I think either seek out the game on its original handheld version and play it if you must, or again, read a Wikipedia or watch a YouTube recap of the story. That's that one. So I don't have a review for that. It's literally some cutscenes. But we are now on to Kingdom Hearts 2 Final Mix. I went into this one with some hype. Kingdom Hearts 2, I think everyone would say, was the game that really solidified this series as something that, you know, actually was, you know, that should be heavily respected as a game. You know, but beyond the novelty of the Disney and Final Fantasy mixing, I think this was the game where a lot of critics were like, yeah, this is a serious, like, you know, high quality series that everyone should be playing. So I was quite excited to jump into Kingdom Hearts 2, and I've not been able to finish this one because this is about a 40-hour game. I've played maybe 10 hours of it, and I'm not enamored by it at all. It has to be said. First of all, the intro to this game is the most boring intro I've played to a game. You basically spend about 3.5 hours before you see the Kingdom Hearts 2 logo and the game starts. So in that time, you play as this dude called Roxas, who was introduced in that set of crap cutscenes I just told you about. And you're him in this town that's fake, and it's all just made up of nonsense because he's trapped in some sort of memory or some garbage. Who could possibly know or care? And you're just doing tedious stuff. Like, he's hanging around with his friends, and they're like, "We need some money to go to the beach," so you just have to go and do these really crap job mini games. But like, you need about 700 gold, and winning one of the mini games gives you about 50 gold. So you just have to repeat them over and over again to get enough gold. And then you get all the gold, and then they say they're going to go to the beach, and then the world kind of craps itself, and he wakes up in bed again, and you do another day of bullshit nonsense with your friends. And that goes on for about 3 hours. You spend about 3 hours just doing really tedious kind of nonsense content in this little fake town. With this character who, you know, again, as we said, they make all these games matter to the point where if you had a PlayStation 2 and you played Kingdom Hearts 1, and then you put this game on, you spend the first 4 hours of it with this guy called Roxas you've literally never met. You don't know who he is. The game thinks you know, and there's all these new characters in black hoods now that you've never seen before. Game thinks you know them as well, but you don't, because you only played the big PS2 games. You didn't play bloody Kingdom Hearts card game on Game Boy. So you're just in this 3.5 hour thing of just whatever the hell it is. And then, yeah, you get past that. You finally play as Sora again, who's obviously the actual main character of the game. They show the Kingdom Hearts 2 logo on the screen again at about 3.5 hours in, which is a real slap in the face. And then the game goes back to the exact structure from Kingdom Hearts 1. You fly to a planet that is based on a Disney movie. You act out that movie in 3 parts, and you leave. And a little bit of Kingdom Hearts crap will happen in between. It's that. You do that again. Maybe there's slightly more to it. The combat has a few extra combos. Sora can now do this special thing where he gets a second Keyblade and does a couple more attacks every now and then when you build a meter up. That's it, man. Other than that, same game. You know, again, look, it's probably good for the time. Probably was good. You know, people obviously waited quite a while between 1 and 2 coming out. They were probably kind of clamoring for more of this. But I don't know. Maybe I just got built up on a bit too much hype for Kingdom Hearts 2. But I thought this was going to be, you know, almost like an Assassin's Creed 2 level jump, where the first game was, you know, a good idea with some rough edges, and the second one really picks it up. Whereas I just found this to be literally just the same game, really, with a really tedious intro. So I'm not having a great time with Kingdom Hearts 2. I can't score it. I'm only 10 hours in. There's a lot more to go. But, you know, it's fair to say that I'm not as fond of it as I thought I would be at this point.
Yeah, I mean, you know, that's fair enough. It's a bit of a sacred cow. We all know that. Kingdom Hearts 2 is beloved by those who have played it or certainly grew up with it. These games are tough to kind of review fairly now, because a lot of what makes them great is real old.
Yeah.
A lot of the all the backgrounds are so sparse and empty in these games because they were PS2 games. Of course, though, everything feels quite lifeless. When I imagine Kingdom Hearts 3, which of course is in the service and hasn't left yet, will fix a lot of those problems and things will feel hustling and bustling, more like an RPG of this time does. But I don't know if that's a complete excuse. The Final Fantasy games always felt quite full of life, even though they were also on the PS2. 10, 12 felt full of life. And yet, Kingdom Hearts series occasionally to me, it just feels a bit drab. Yeah. Like the actual art design's quite good. All the worlds look cool because they're working off very good groundwork, very good frameworks, and the character designs are all suitably zippy and leathery, which is what you want any JRPG to be. But the worlds and the game design can be a little bit bland. Some of the time, something to play through to get to a story which is, look, these games that get a lot of hate for their ridiculous over-the-top storytelling, but it's charming enough in the way that a lot of JRPGs are. It's all about hearts and being a good person deep down and all that sort of mumbo-jumbo. It's okay. It suits Disney, which does a lot of that itself. Yeah. So in many ways, it's a very good sitting between the two. But you kind of have to be invested in that and invested in Square as a company in general, where that if you do see a Moogle man in a shop, you go, oh my God, it's going to call me Koopo, and I can't wait for that. That's what you need to be in. You need to be into that sort of thing.
Yeah, no, that makes sense to me. And I would say as well, like, this is something I think you actually said to me before the podcast, but the story gets a lot of hate for being too complex. And it's not complexity, is it? It's just too much content is really the problem. Like, nothing in this is hard to actually follow on an individual level. But the problem is, because they've decided to try and stretch a story across about 15 games, you just can't, there's only so much information I'm going to hold in my head about what's actually going on. I just can't follow all that. It doesn't help when you're watching remastered cinematics rather than playing the game as well, because obviously you play a full game, it's going to sit with you a bit more than if you just flick through some cutscenes for an hour. So I don't know. It's not as much of a jumbled mess as I expected. I just think that it's a bit unrealistic to try and follow all of the different plot threads, really.
Well, that's it, isn't it? As I did mention this before we hopped on the recording today, and it's right. Kingdom Hearts, the core story isn't too complicated, but the desperate desire to make every spin-off matter and have importance, rather than just being a spin-off, which maybe is a standalone story that has no bearing on the main plot of the game, which many franchises do. Loads of franchises do that. If you want standalone stories within a universe, but you don't want to impact the main story, you can do that. But for whatever reason, Kingdom Hearts as a franchise doesn't. And it's very happy to jump around in its timeline all over the place to try to slot these stories in to make everything relevant. And that's fine, and you can follow that, but it does mean if you do skip one or you don't pay attention for a little while, you could suddenly find yourself in the dark for very little reason other than you haven't just consumed all of the entertainment that this game is offering you. I said to you before, imagine if the Star Wars movies required you to have intimate knowledge of a GameCube exclusive game from 18 years ago, and it went to its audience in the multiplexes. Well, I'm sorry you didn't actually buy or play that, but we're going to continue with it, and it's your damn fault you didn't. Yeah. You'd be furious. You'd be like, what are you doing? Yeah. And Kingdom Hearts, for whatever reason, very much subscribes to the idea that its very ardent fan base will consume everything that it does. And I guess it does to an extent, but if you are a lay person coming into the franchise, there's no wonder why people think it's incomprehensible, because it takes no steps to make it not incomprehensible. Even what I've got, which is the Story So Far collection of all of these games here, still has blank parts where there's exclusive web games in Japan which launched, which has huge story, which fills in the entire prequel to the series. Yeah, and you don't get any of that. That's incredible stuff. I love that. Yeah. But it's also absolutely bonkers.
Yeah, absolutely. But look, right, that's as far as I've managed to get here. There is my side of this review situation here does have Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep Remastered, which is a game I just couldn't get to. And also has cinematics for Kingdom Hearts Recoded. Again, I made it as far as I could. I've been beaten down. I'm crawling over to the corner to tag you in now, Josh, so you can cover 2.8 HD Final Chapter Prologue. So go ahead. You let us know what's going on with that one.
Okay, so 2.8 Final Chapter Prologue consists of 3 titles, which are in this case Kingdom Hearts Dream Drop Distance HD, Kingdom Hearts 0.2 : Birth by Sleep - A Fragmentary Passage, and Kingdom Hearts Key. It looks like an X, but that's actually the Greek character Key back cover. If you want a small indication of how Kingdom Hearts really wants to fuck with its audience, take into the fact that the main weapons you use are called keyblades. And the ultimate weapon, which everybody is hunting for, is called a keyblade, but it uses the Greek character key, spelled CHI, instead of that. You have got to love that. If you don't have a subtitle on, you wouldn't know the difference. And that is just glorious Kingdom Hearts. That, to me, epitomizes everything. But let's roll ourselves back to the first title I mentioned, Dream Drop Distance. Mm-hmm. This was a Nintendo 3DS game, came out very close to the launch of the title, was very big on, utilizing the fancy 3D and that gosh darn pencil that we all loved so much when the 3DS launched. So this is a big title at the time, and essentially this is a game where you play Sora and Riku, and essentially it doesn't matter. It's almost like a training mission that they've been sent on here, and you revisit old worlds to see if you can master a Keyblade or something along those lines. So this is as close as Kingdom Hearts gets to just making an inconsequential game. It doesn't have a huge bearing on the story. Of course, it does have big parts interlaced within it, which you will then need to know for the next title, because of course you do. It's Kingdom Hearts. They can't help themselves completely. But this game has a slightly different combat style to Kingdom Hearts 1. It is still a real-time battling game. But what it does here is it introduces almost like Pokemon-esque elements where you have these spirits which you will capture and create via certain magical mumbo-jumbo. And they will fight alongside you in combat. Okay. So you have to train and raise up these spirits to aid you in combat, to help you battle some of the bad dudes you're going to face. Not a bad idea in theory. Kind of works a lot more for a handheld where, playing those mini games where you're throwing treats to them and stuff like that will be fun on a touchscreen. Yeah. It's less investing on a control pad. So there's certain things which are lost in translation here, and I think the entire spirits element of it was very much home to the 3DS, where that would feel like a cool thing. You could just quickly flip open your screen on the bus, piss about with your spirit, and then, maybe do a couple of fights and move on. Mm. Another big thing that they do in this, which ties into the handheld format as well, is that this game has something called a drop. And what happens is you play as Sora and Riku almost simultaneously, but after 20 to 30 minutes, you will have to swap characters. You are forced to. No matter what you are doing in the opposing world, you will have to change characters. That can be frustrating if, for example, me, you was in a boss battle and you were 2 or 3 hits away from beating it. The time runs out. You get switched to the other dude. You do that, you go back, and you just got to beat the boss again because it doesn't save exactly where you are. It just saves at the start of the room you were in. So it can be a case of looking where you are with the time and maybe thinking, okay, I need to park this now and move on. So that's a weird system, and I don't necessarily know how it helps. But to give it its due, one thing that it does do is that although you're walking through the exact same worlds, it does kind of make you feel like something different is happening, because that 20 minutes later, you're going to change to doing somebody else's job in this world rather than what they are doing. So it keeps things fresh, even though you're going through the same environments with about 5 or 6 rooms for the best part of 2 hours at a time. It kind of makes it feel fresher than it actually is. It's an okay game, is this. It's fine. I don't love it. It's perfectly playable. It's kind of enjoyable in its own way. I think the things it adds in don't particularly help the formula. There's something that it calls flow motion combat, where you can grind on rails and swing around lampposts to do tricks and certain moves. And it's okay, but actually triggering them is a little bit finicky. It doesn't work as if you slide in the general direction of a lamppost, 50% of the time it'll do it, 50% of the time it won't. And that's not ideal when you're trying to make something happen exactly at that moment. Yeah. So, there's frustrations to be had there. But It's okay. It's not too bad. I know you played this on the 3DS, and I did try to go through as much of this as possible to try to jog your memory to see if any of these things resonated with you. So did any of them?
Yeah, I mean, I remember some of this. I ended up just getting this for 3DS. I think basically there was just a good offer on when I bought a 3DS to get this game for cheap. And I thought, Kingdom Hearts, I've heard that's good. Yeah, I mean, I remember the combat being notably kind of quite fast paced compared to what I was expecting from it. I imagine it hasn't aged particularly well, especially since it's a 3DS game now pushed up to home consoles. But I remember it being somewhat fast paced. I do remember being frustrated by that time limit thing. Again, like you said, it does at least keep things somewhat interesting, and you're always doing something new, which helps a bit. But yeah, as you said, sometimes you're trying to finish something off and you end up going because they basically go to sleep, right? That's what happens. They kind of fall back asleep or something. Yeah, so you go to sleep and you're like, oh, for God's sake, now I have to go and do this other thing that I didn't necessarily want to do right now. That's a bit tedious. I remember feeling at the time like this game had some real like C tier like Disney places, almost like they were like, we don't want to use too many good ones. Like I remember there being a world based on like the 2010 Tron movie, which is literally nobody asked for. Like nobody wants to do 2010 Tron in Kingdom Hearts. Like, come on.
Yeah, no, Tron's a bad level as well, because the problem this game has is, and I alluded to it earlier, is that you can get lost quite easily in Kingdom Hearts games because they don't really ever tell you what to do. They just give you a general indication, and the rooms are all fairly small and the maps aren't massive. So as you say, you can brute force it just by going through every door, and eventually something will happen. But this game in particular, with it being just an upgrade of a 3DS game, has very little going on to differentiate one room from another. And in Tron, a space which is entirely looks the same all the time anyway, it can get very frustrating to know where the heck you are. You can accidentally double back on yourself and not even realize it because it's Tron. That's the whole point of Tron. So yeah, no, Tron's not exactly a great pick, but there's a few others. You play in a world based on the Hunchback of Notre Dame, which is perfectly adequate. The Three Musketeers also crop up. It's very C-list Disney. You're not wrong. It's lower tier Disney. It's not incredible. But the fun of the Fantasia pops up, and who doesn't love a bit of Fantasia?
Yeah.
So there's little bits of cool environments here and there, and the stories, as ever, are very weird kind of retellings of what happened in those movies, in like the quickest, fastest way possible. And I kind of like that because I remember these Disney movies, but I watched them all when I was a kid. So it's almost quite enjoyable to just go, I kind of remember all this. And this is, if you used to sit me down and say, Josh, explain the plot of the Hunchback of Notre Dame, I'd probably essentially give you the plot of this Kingdom Hearts game because that's as much as I can remember about it.
So basically, it's like what you're saying is, because obviously we have some unhealthy obsession with, being completionists, ticking things off on a big, massive sheet of Game Pass games. And this almost lets you like quickly complete Disney again. You can you can give yourself a Y for Hunchback. You got a Y for Tron 2010. You just tick it off all those Disney movies. You don't need to waste 90 minutes watching them. You've done Kingdom Hearts for half an hour. You know it now.
Exactly. So if you want to beat the Disney, there's definitely a very good game series for you to do that. Look, I don't hate this game. I think it's perfectly playable. I mean, ultimately, I know that it's not really that good, but I have a weird soft spot for this franchise. From what I've played of it, I just find something oddly enjoyable about it, almost despite myself. And I don't really know why. The combat, it's not incredible, but it's very mindless. It's like Maneater. There's something mindless about these games, which taken in conjunction with its very high concept story, is such a ridiculous juxtaposition that it kind of hits the synapses in my brain, which go, this is trash, and I love it. And this is kind of what I get from the Kingdom Hearts series, and definitely what I've gotten from this one thus far. I've still got about 4 hours to play of it. I probably will beat it. I'll probably go back to it once this is done and finish it off, because it's not really that bad of a game. Some of the boss fights are a bit terrible. No, it could be worse. It's tracking to a 7 for me for Dream Drop distance.
Cool. I'm gonna give that one a 6 based on me playing the 3DS version about 10 years ago. So there you go. Maybe trust Josh's 7 more than my 10-year-old 6.
I'd probably say the 6 is closer to the truth. But let's move on to the next game, and that's Kingdom Hearts 0.2: Birth by Sleep - A Fragmentary Passage, as part of Kingdom Hearts 2.8 HD Final Chapter Prologue. Yep. So that's a long title.
Sure
this
is.
game essentially is a tiny part of Birth by Sleep, which is part of your package, which you didn't get to.
Yeah.
So it means absolutely nothing to me. It'll mean nothing to you either. But what this game kind of was almost like a run-in and a teaser to Kingdom Hearts 3. This is the most modern Kingdom Hearts included in these packages. And if you did have any interest in having a little teaser for yourself of whether you'd like Kingdom Hearts 3, this is probably the game to go to because it's essentially running on that engine with modern physics, modern particle effects, and a lot more jazz and stuff happening around you. It's a much more alive world. You know, I criticize bland leveled and world design in the past couple of games. This game, you can't accuse it of that. There's a lot more going on here, even if it could still do with a few extra trinkets here and there.
Yeah.
But there's actually, this is a pretty decent game. This takes the real-time fighting from the past Kingdom Hearts games and kind of brings them up to where you are now with Final Fantasy 15 7 Remake.
Cool.
It's very fast-paced. It's very quick. There's a lot of particle effects. All the buttons are much easier to manage than the weird menus, which were all over the old game. So you'd have to press 7 or 8 times on a D-pad to get to the move you wanted to. Things are much easier accessible here. It looks nicer. The story is very self-contained, I'm assuming, to what happened at the end of that last game. It seems quite important. Mickey's heading around saying serious dialogue in his stupid Mickey voice again. Still the best part of any Kingdom Hearts game. So, you know, I don't mind this. There's double jumps, which is nice. The movement of the actual character isn't as trudgingly slow. Yeah, I actually quite enjoy this. It makes me want to play Kingdom Hearts 3, which is probably the biggest compliment I can give it. You know, it actually makes me think maybe I should boot up that copy of Kingdom Hearts 3, spend another 7 hours reading up on the lore, and just give it a damn good shot.
That's fair. No, that makes sense. So have you managed to get around to a bit of Kingdom Hearts key back cover or not?
I did watch all of that this morning.
All right. Nice.
I intended to watch 10 minutes, and then for whatever reason, I just watched it all. It's about 1 hour. It's not pre-rendered. This isn't cinematics. This is a standalone movie. Essentially, it's slightly different to what they're doing. It's based on a web. I think it's based on the Japan-only game Kingdom Hearts Key.
Yeah,
which you can't play over here at all. So a lot of the stuff which it's talking about is completely foreign, even to the ardent Kingdom Hearts fans in the West. But yeah, it's just a very simple story about how this whole conflict came to be. Set about some master dude who has his disciples, and one of them's a traitor. That is perfectly watchable. I watched it with a wiki guide looking up who people were and how they related into things.
Yeah.
And
The only way to do it.
As ever we can, it's not that complicated. There's just a lot of it.
Yeah.
And like, once you work through how much of it there is, it's a fairly simple, fairly easily told fantasy story. It's not that hard. It's just too much.
Yeah.
But it's perfectly watchable if you've played all of these games. By the time you get to Kingdom Hearts Key back cover, you might as well bloody watch it. It's only 60 minutes. It's perfectly fine. It was entertaining enough. Got a cracking character called the Master of Masters, who's just a total jerk. And I absolutely adore him. He's in this big zippy trench coat. He's like the evil black dudes from, the black trench coat dudes from Kingdom Hearts 2. He's dressed exactly like them. So he clearly has some bearing on the main game. I don't know what. I haven't played enough for that. Who does? But he has some bearing and he's cool. So it's worth a watch.
That sounds good. That sounds good. So, okay, then. I mean, obviously, we've covered a lot there. If you think it's been exhausting listening to this, then imagine if you had to try and play them all. But I guess we should try and break this down in some kind of sensible way. You know, all of this content we just went through, closing thoughts on the Kingdom Hearts we've experienced so far and whether it's kind of brought us, are we fans of the series? Do we want to play more of it? Because I think from my end, I'd been looking forward to playing these games for a long time. I never got around to them on the PS2, and they were always in the back of my mind as something I thought, one day gonna hit all that Kingdom Hearts stuff, gonna love it. And I've been left a little cold by the early titles in the series. I just think I love stupid old games as well, but I'm just struggling a bit with just how similar a lot of the early releases in this series are. And also you get some heavy missteps like that card game that should just be avoided. So my early, the fact I played the early stuff maybe has been a bit of a detriment to me because listening to you talk about stuff like that 0.2 game, which is basically a demo for free, that sounds really fun and playable. And that makes me actually want to play Kingdom Hearts free. Whereas the stuff I've played in these earlier games it did not leave me with that feeling. There was no part of me that actually cared about playing Kingdom Hearts 3 on the back of the titles I played. So, it's a bit of a mixed bag. I think you've got to really be appreciative of the fact that this is a pretty old collection of games at this point. If you do want to make the plunge and, commit 200 hours to some of this early content for me.
Yeah, look, I mean, Kingdom Hearts, again, a franchise I've always been intrigued by, and I have probably come out of playing a little bit of 1 and obviously playing most of the 2.8 collection. The thinking I probably will go back and try and beat more of them, if only because it does hit that trash receptacle in my brain. There's something very trashy about this game series, and people may see that as an insult, but I don't think it is. I like trash, and Kingdom Hearts is kind of trashy, and it works on that level. There's a lot of weird things going on, and it's such a cool concept at its very core. And I think that carries it through a lot. I think the Disney Square Enix mashup really elevates everything about this series, which could be fairly standard JRPG. Otherwise, everything gets bumped up a bit because environments and characters. There's something cool about going on an adventure with Aladdin. There just is. That's fun, and that's weird. You don't get to do that anymore. They don't make Disney tie-in games anymore. So it's the only way to really play with these characters. And there's something pretty joyous about that. So I can definitely get on board of this game, and Sora with his giant clown shoes and Goofy being your dad. And just everything about it is just weird and stupid. The combat's kind of satisfying. The story's bonkers. I have a lot of joy for this series. And I will also say the main title, the main bit of music, the main theme for this series is gorgeous.
Oh yeah.
If you do nothing else, just boost up the menu for this game where it plays the main theme and just sit there and listen to it for 7 or 8 minutes, because it's absolutely stunning. There's a lot of great music in these games. Like the opening of 0.2 has a kick-ass J-pop song, which I brought out my Donkey Konga bongos and was just bashing along to on my bongos, having a damn good time. It's a lot of fun. It does a lot of cool stuff like that. So I'm a Kingdom Hearts apologist. I'll certainly call myself that. I think there's a lot to enjoy in this franchise. But yeah, pick up the Story So Far collection. Don't buy these separately. You might as well get them all bundled in one big disc. I think you can even buy one now, which includes Kingdom Hearts 3. So just do that. It's an undertaking, though. Let me tell you.
No, that's spot on. I mean, I agree with most of that. I would say, you're completely right. The music in this series is breathtaking. That intro theme, I think it's called Dearly Beloved. That's beautiful. All of the mainline games, even I'm pretty sure Kingdom Hearts 2 has a fantastic main menu theme. Kingdom Hearts 3 actually has who was it? Skrillex was involved in the intro for Kingdom Hearts 3. And yet it's absolutely fantastic. Like it's genuinely brilliant. I love it. So yeah, great music. And then obviously you got all the Disney themes and the Final Fantasy stuff in there as well. So it's a real it's a real audio treat, that's for sure. But yeah, there you go. We did it. We did almost all the Kingdom Hearts there, as much as we could possibly manage. I'm quite proud of us.
Yeah, I mean, God help us, and thank God it's over, because that was an interesting week, to say the least.
All right, then. So, as always, going to close the show with a bit of news, and we have had tons of stuff going on this week. There's been all kinds of little YouTube specials for different franchises, different game series, stuff like that. Let's open it up then with the Dragon Quest 35th anniversary special. So, this was a really fun little peculiar broadcast, I would say. It was kind of very, very informal. It was like a Japanese only broadcast. It was the Dragon Quest creator, Yuji Horii, and a presenter just chatting about Dragon Quest, dropping in announcements from time to time. There was an English translator who, I mean, she just had to try her best. It's very difficult to live translate two men just having a casual, like, banter-filled chat and like trying desperately to just get all the information out to the international audience on what they're actually talking about. So she did the best she could with it. And yeah, look, this was quite a long show, and mainly it had announcements that were for the Japanese audience only. So we won't dig too much into that stuff, but we will talk about the big stuff that is going to be international. First of all, there was an announcement for Dragon Quest 12, which is going to be called Dragon Quest 12: The Flames of Fate. We don't know anything about this yet. It just got a logo. Apparently, one of the lines someone said was translated to say that they're framing this as Dragon Quest for adults, which I don't know if I don't know what that's going to mean. I guess you can maybe add some more mature themes to Dragon Quest, but I kind of feel a bit like that's at odds with what it is. It's very much a kind of light-hearted, somewhat goofy, like retro-inspired RPG series. I don't know. Maybe there'll be nothing in that line, but that's all we got to go on right now. But yeah, Dragon Quest, great series. I'm yet to complete one, but I am trying. I've played about 30 hours of Dragon Quest 11, and I managed about 20 hours in a couple of the DS ones. So good series, always good to get another big game.
Yeah, no, sounds cool. Don't say no more. Dragon Quest for adults. That sounds fantastic. I'd have called it Dragon Quest 12. No babies allowed. But what can you do? I'm not in charge of naming conventions.
Maybe it's just Dragon Quest 11, but then when you go on the store, it just says regional specific DLC, and you download that, and then there you go. But yeah, look, as well as that, there was an announcement for a Dragon Quest 3 remake. The kind of cool, notable thing about this is that it's kind of running in that Octopath Traveler, what they call it, HD 2D style, which, it's a beautiful art style. It makes things look fantastic. So anyone who fancies playing a kind of retro Dragon Quest game, I think this is going to be really good for that. I would say as well that the retro Dragon Quest games they're available on the Switch store, and I looked them up because they were on sale recently, and I was thinking about buying them, but they look dreadful. They're like, it's like, when they remake kind of retro games on mobile and they just make the art, they completely kill the personality of the art style. That's kind of what those current Switch releases do. So I'm happy there's one coming out that is a real passion project for the developers involved. Like, this thing looks beautiful. So that's super cool. And while we're on this one as well, quickly, I have to say, like, another element from this presentation that was fantastic was Yuji Horii just kept talking about stuff that he wasn't meant to talk about. So they had someone off camera with like a referee's like whistle from football, and he just whistled whenever he was going into something he shouldn't be saying. So like, he kind of implied that they were like going to make Dragon Quest 1 and 2 in this style next if this does well. And like, then the whistle went off and the main presenter was like, Horii-san, you weren't meant to be saying that. Like, what are you doing? you always can't be trusted. And it was great. I gotta say, like, this thing was somewhat hard to follow because the translator was working really hard to do it live, which was difficult, but it was a adorable, lovely little showcase. Like, we've ripped on some really bad reveal events and showcases in the news segment on this podcast, and this wasn't one of them. I kind of loved this. I thought it was quite cute.
Yeah, no, it's got a lot of charm and a lot of heart. Did this broadcast? It captures the spirit of Dragon Quest as a series. I think that 3 remake looks fantastic. Love the Octopath HD style. I mean, most of the mainline Dragon Quest games have had big remakes now. 7 and 8 on the 3DS. 9 was launched on the DS, so that is as it is. The only ones we're really missing is, by all accounts, Dragon Quest V is the best one. And I still yet to see a big remake for that. So I'm hoping that is going to have some referees' whistles going around it as well, and that we can maybe get that announced, because that's the one I really want to play.
Yeah, absolutely. But anyway, let's move on from Dragon Quest then. And we have Sonic Central next, which is basically a 30th anniversary celebration show. This started off a bit shaky. I was watching this live, and it basically had the presenter guy telling us all, thanks to the fans for being there for 30 years, all this kind of stuff. And they just cut back to the countdown and then brought him back in on a totally different sentence a few minutes later. So that gave me real vibes of the 25-year celebration of Sonic, which, I mean, that's what we alluded to in the intro of this episode. That is the greatest video on the internet. The 25-year Sonic celebration is the biggest car crash event I think I've ever seen from gaming. It's absolute magic, and I just adore it so much.
It's beautiful, isn't it? You've got a giant Sonic doing the Macarena. You've got Crush Forty just not connecting with the crowd at all. You've got horrific audio glitches. You've got entire parts of the broadcasters not working. It's the entire thing's a disaster. And the best thing is, it was there to announce Sonic Mania, which is by pretty much the best Sonic game in the past 20 years, was announced in this absolute sham of a press conference. But yeah, if you've never watched it and you don't understand the joy of this expression, this is the sound of 25 years of Sonic. And you really have not lived
Oh,
because it's a special thing.
I will put a YouTube link in the show notes for that one. So yeah, definitely seek that out after you've finished listening this week. But yeah, anyway, let's go to the announcements that are actually on this year's show. And they kind of started this off with an announcement that on Sonic's actual 30th anniversary, which I believe is the 23rd of June. Yeah, it is. Yeah. They're going to be doing a free Sonic Symphony concert online, which, will be pretty cool, I'm sure. Big orchestra doing Sonic songs. Also, somehow Crush 40 is there to do their kind of Sonic the Hedgehog butt rock, which, we all love it. Let's be honest. It's absolute garbage, but everyone loves a bit of Crush 40 Sonic music. So that's going to be there too. That's just free to watch online. That'll be nice. Beyond that, we had some horrifying looking Sonic costumes coming to this year's Olympics game. That was genuinely chilling to look at. So if you've ever wanted to see just a weird life, like human-sized Sonic just punching someone in a boxing ring, then check that out. That's great. So there's definitely that. 2 Point Hospital is also getting some Sonic costumes. So, fun little bits there. One that was a bit more cool, I thought, was Lost Judgment, the Yakuza spin-off series. The next game from that is going to be featuring the Sonic the Fighters 1996 arcade game in the arcades in there. If anyone's not played a Judgment or Yakuza game, by the way, these things are full of Sega arcades that have classic Sega games. It's fantastic. But yeah, we're going to be getting some mediocre Sonic beat 'em up action on the go in the next one. Love to see that. There was a tiny tease for something Minecraft related, but they made a real point of not showing it. They showed just a quick bit of quick screenshot, basically. So we don't know much about that. Now let's get to the bigger stuff, the more game themed stuff. So first of all, we have a remaster of Sonic Colors coming out. Sonic Colors was a Wii exclusive back about 11 years ago, I think now. Really well received. It's one I've never actually got around to playing. I think I'd got fed up with my Wii by then and put it in a cupboard. So I've not played Sonic Colors. I will be playing it quite soon. I believe we have a Sonic related rankings thing coming up at some point in time. So I do need to play Sonic Colors before the Ultimate one, which is nice. Nice bit of Sonic Colors non-Ultimate for me. But yeah, this is cool, right? I mean, it looks like a nice polished remaster coming out in September to all the current consoles. Yeah, I ain't got any complaints about it.
No, Sonic Colors is a damn good game. Enjoyed it a lot. Played it on the Wii when it came out after the absolute travesty that was Secret Rings and Black Knight. Two games I actually quite like because I'm a sick individual.
Of course.
But certainly Sonic Colors was a legitimately good Sonic game, full of wisps, which were power-ups in the vein of like a Mario game. So essentially, Sega just gave up and went, fine, we'll just do a Mario game with Sonic. You win. And yeah, it was real good. It's a real good game. So glad to see that getting a HD polish. I always found it a bit strange. It was relegated, lost to time on the Wii.
Yeah, absolutely. The next announcement it's a strange one because I would be excited about this if I knew more, but I think the announcement was quite underwhelming, which is they basically just came on and said, we're making another Sonic collection of the old games. It's going to come to, your Xbox Series, your PS5, your Switch. They said it's going to include 1, 2, 3, Sonic and Knuckles, Sonic CD, and they'll have more games to announce for it down the line. But that was kind of it, right? There was nothing, they didn't say anything else to really jazz this up. And I can already play all those games via backwards compatibility on my Xbox Series X anyway. Obviously, they're all on mini consoles and the like as well for the most part. And I don't know. I just didn't feel like they did anything to excite me with this. Now, I know there's been speculation that these might be kind of remade in the Sonic Mania engine to make them run a bit tighter. I don't know if that's necessary, but at least it would give them an excuse to exist. I don't know. I'm all for a Sonic Classic collection, but I just feel like this currently just looks like a bunch of games that are very easy to get everywhere already.
Yeah, it's a weird one, this, isn't it? I mean, if you could give true 16:9 support to each of the titles, that would at least be something, because only the Sega Ages collection on Switch, Sonic 1 and 2, have been given that thus far. Obviously, Sonic 3 has been caught in a rights-based tangle for the best part of a decade now, it seems.
Yeah.
The popular rumor being that it's Michael Jackson music in the actual. Yeah, that's by all accounts that is true. So that game actually being released again is fun, if nothing else, because the only way you can play and buy that now is like on the Sonic Mega Collection from yonks ago. All the more recent Dreamcast Genesis collections didn't include it.
See,
and obviously they make them.
See, I already have. I bought that on Xbox Live Arcade before it got delisted, so I do have that one. But I didn't realize it was so difficult to get. So that's a really good point.
So that's cool, but at the same time, I don't want to give them too much praise here. This is just a collection of the same games that have been flogging forever. As far as I'm concerned, by this point in time, these games have so little value monetarily in terms of nostalgia. They're some of the best games of all time, but monetarily, I think you really need to be offering a collection of 25, 30 games to make me pay for this again. If you can give me, here's pretty much everything up until, I don't know, Sonic Unleashed. Here it all is. I don't know why Sonic Unleashed is my
I like the idea that implies you definitely want Sonic 06 on there. You gotta go.
Yeah, give me Sonic 06. Give me that too. But, I just feel we need to start, instead of having lots of different collections dotted about, if Sega just do an ultimate, here's 25 years of Sonic and just gives me all of it.
Yeah,
that might actually be worth buying. Otherwise, I own these games about 1 million times.
Yeah,
I'll probably buy it again, but that's because I'm an idiot.
Yep, I will do exactly the same thing. So yeah, there was some more smaller announcements here that we'll skip over. Some Sonic games are coming to PlayStation Now. Some Sonic games are coming to Amazon Luna, which frankly I didn't even realize was out, but apparently it is. So there you go. It's impressive to have a streaming service that's even less popular than Stadia, but there it is. Some Sonic costumes coming to some mobile games. No one cares. There's some Sonic TV shows. No one cares.
I do, but I'm an idiot. But
well, yeah, I'll probably watch them. There's a big Netflix show, isn't it? Sonic Prime, which is getting 24 episodes in 2022. I'll give it a go for sure. There was a big section on just new Sonic merchandise, which some of this stuff looked pretty cool. There's a big Dark Horse comics encyclopedia thing, which looks beautiful. I will end up owning that, and then it'll sit on my shelf and I'll never look at it. That's what I do. It's my thing. That looked good. There was some jewelry of just big ass Sonic character heads, which probably won't be buying.
What did they announce that as? Did they announce that as like, if you're like a hip hop Sonic lover?
Yeah, they did.
It was the most Sega line I've ever heard. Nothing is more Sega than them saying, "Yeah, if you want hip hop Sonic, here's these Sonic pendants. The blin." Oh man, it was cringe.
It was the most like hello fellow cool kids. Like he is just like, oh yeah, awful. But there you go. If you want some hip hop Sonic bling, apparently Sega will be giving you that there. But yeah, a couple of cool bits of merch. As I said, the book looks great. And then final announcement, which we've got nothing to go on, but they showed a cinematic of Sonic running through a forest. He kind of made some weird little runic symbol in the ground, and then it just showed that symbol, and then 2022, and all we know is that that's going to be the next mainline Sonic game. It's been a while, been 5 years since Sonic Forces, which sucked. So they've been at work for a long time on this. I will be buying it the first day it comes out, and I hope it's good, but I am not sure it will be. That's all I got so far.
It'll be terrible, but I'll defend it to the hilt, as I do. I mean, I don't even hate Sonic Forces that much. I think it's got some all right bits. But that game's objectively trash.
Yeah.
And yeah, part of me is like, it's okay. The Sonic bits are good. So I'm just too far gone at this point. There's no saving me. But yeah, this is by teaser. I think teaser is a strong term for what they gave us here. This was just an announcement that Sonic Team will make another Sonic game. I mean, well, duh. Yeah. We all know they were going to at some point. That doesn't even count. Even Breath of the Wild 2 got more bloody footage than this did. And that game's had nothing for 2 years either.
Yeah, very good point. I mean, this was fine. I mean, they made a point at the start of this of saying they'll have more reveals and announcements over the next few months. So it was very much meant to just be a kind of initial offering. So I'm looking forward to hearing more. I kind of hope they don't take too long to show off more of that Sonic game. Because like I said, it's been 5 years. You gotta be pushing that out the door soon. Surely, I know they said 2022, but early 2022 would be favorable to a holiday release because I just think it's been ages. But yeah, decent little show. Definitely not as tight or as engaging as the Dragon Quest one, but it was fine.
I loved it. I thought it was great.
Well, of course you did.
It was fantastic. Love that Sonic Blin. I'm going to be so cool when I wear my Sonic Blin out and about in public.
Let me tell you, man, when we do that Sonic rankings, it's going to be interesting because I feel like there's no Sonic games in there that you will not be able to defend. You'll be like, every game is top 10. Just Sonic 06, best Sonic. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see how that goes. Anyway, let's move on then. We've got even more like gameplay reveal type stuff going on this week. We'll skip over these two pretty quickly, but there was a state of play for Horizon Forbidden West shown by Sony this week. This, it was about 15 minutes of gameplay from Horizon. Definitely looked great. One thing I would say, just as a kind of little tip for these state of plays, if anyone's interested, but they always air these live at like 1080p, HD, and they look nice enough. But the second it finishes, they put up a 4K version, which obviously looks infinitely better. So I've now kind of got into a rhythm with these where I just don't watch them live. I just wait for that 4K one because that really gets, this game in 4K looks absolutely breathtaking. That is one thing I took away from the Forbidden West state of play. It looks absolutely beautiful. And frankly, if I'd watched the 1080p stream, because I wasn't particularly enthralled by the gameplay here, I think this is just more Horizon, which is a very good open world kind of action adventure game. So it was fine, but nothing like blew me away. So if I'd watched the 1080p one, I'd probably just be like, whatever. Whereas because I did at least watch the 4K version, I can tell you that it does look beautiful. It looks really, really nice, really smooth. So yeah, just a little tip there for these state of plays, especially these ones where you already know what's on it. I ain't going to be waiting for like an announcements focused show, but ones where it's just going to be gameplay, maybe just wait for the 4K stream.
Yeah, that's a good top tip. Horizon Forbidden West, I'm sure it'll be pretty good. I like Zero Dawn. I thought it was a decent enough game, but I can't say I'm hugely hyped for Horizon Forbidden West for no reason other than I don't massively want any more of it. I think it was okay, Zero Dawn, but I can't find myself clamoring for more. But I'll play it. I'll enjoy it. I'm sure it'll be fine. But yeah, it's slightly overhyped for me as this franchise. I think it's okay. I think it's playable.
See, I kind of like, I've heard other people say this online and stuff, and I don't want to drag on it too much, but I was really sort of screwed over in a way, or Horizon was screwed over by the fact that it came out so close to Breath of the Wild. Because like, I just jumped into Breath of the Wild, which was this obviously, complete freedom, climb anything you want as long as you've got the stamina for it, and like just explore this world. And then Horizon Zero Dawn was a fantastic open world, like I said, fantastic open world action adventure game, but it felt restrictive because I just played Breath of the Wild. So I never actually finished the original one. So I've still got that to cover. I will probably try and get to it now that we're going to be a bit more free of Game Pass. I will actually have an opportunity to maybe play a game like that. But, this looks like more of the same. So there's not really much point me picking this one up until I get through that one. But anyway, let's go on to another game which just looks exactly the same as its previous games. There was a gameplay trailer this week for Far Cry 6. So Far Cry is back in another, kind of just random made up country that is clearly inspired by real world things, but except it isn't because Ubisoft insist they don't make political games. So yeah, here we are. We're going to be doing some like guerrilla warfare on this island, and yeah, I don't know, man. Looks nice. It looks like a nice game. You're gonna get some guns. You're gonna take over some outposts, and eventually take down the dictator person. It's just Far Cry, man. It honestly, I don't know. It's literally just the same game. They had this bit in this where they were trying to pretend that this was this inspired idea, which completely just threw me off. But they were saying that like they want to lean into this guerrilla warfare fantasy where like even though there's a small number of you, even though you're on your own, you feel like you have the strength of like 1,000 soldiers. And I was like, that's just video games, guys. That's what all video games are. We're one person with a gun and we kill like 300 men. That's just it. That's the whole thing. So that was nothing. That's apparently their whole angle for this game, and that's literally what all video games do. So I'm not particularly bothered about that. Yeah, I don't know, man. I struggle so much with this series. I find it so uninteresting. If you want to go and cause chaos and shoot people on a pretty clearly political but not political inspired game, then there it is. There's more Far Cry. You can do the Far Cry things again. But I honestly, I think I've reached the point where Far Cry as a standalone thing is the series that inspires me least out of all of the series. Like other Ubisoft series, sometimes they can catch my eye if they do something a bit unique. Far Cry, I'm just so done with. Like, I only watched this because we do a podcast and I felt like I should watch it to tell people about it. Like, I was basically coerced into watching it. I would not have went near this if I didn't have to do this show.
Yeah, I mean, Far Cry is certainly probably one of the more tedious Ubisoft franchises, and this includes, Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon. So it's a pretty narrow list. I don't have much to add here. I'm sure it'll be perfectly serviceable if you've convinced yourself you still want to play Ubisoft games. I interviewed Giancarlo Esposito, and he's a very nice man.
Yeah.
So if you like your Giancarlo Esposito, if you like your Gus Fring or your Mandalorian, then he's in it. He's great. So yeah. That's nice.
Yep, there you go. Well, anyway, one last news item, and we'll keep this one brief too, because I mean, basically, because there's probably going to be an actual announcement probably by the time our next show hits. But there is heavy speculation this week that we're going to be getting an announcement for the next Nintendo Switch console before E3, which basically gives them about a week and a half from now to get that news out there. From what we're hearing, and I mean, it all sounds pretty locked in here. It's going to be more expensive than the current model, but also will be replacing it. Apparently, it's going to have those Samsung OLED screens that got kind of leaked months ago. So nicer quality screen, very slightly bigger. I think we're going up from like 6.7 inches to 7 or something. So slightly bigger screen. I mean, imagine your Switch now, but without that big black kind of bezel around the edge, and you'll probably have an idea for the size of the screen. Should be able to do 4K output onto a TV, although I am heavily skeptical that it'll be able to hold any sort of decent frame rate at that. They say they're putting a much better like NVIDIA graphics chip in there, but I mean, the Switch is still a small machine, man. I'd be surprised. But then again, I was blown away by what the Switch could do anyway. When the Switch first came out, I was blown away by the fact it could play stuff like Breath of the Wild. So maybe they have got a kind of, a little kind of, I don't know, maybe they can pull this off. We'll see.
Yeah, no, I'm hyped to see what they do with the console. I'll probably buy one, despite the fact I don't really need one.
Same.
So yeah, I'll look forward to doing that this Christmas season more than likely. But yeah, let's wait to see what they announce. I heard somebody say it's going to be 4K handheld. I'm like, no, it isn't.
Nah,
mate.
it's not.
It absolutely is not. If it gets to 1080p, that'll be a low key miracle. In handheld mode. So let's maybe if it gets to that, I'd be like, God damn, that's impressive.
Yeah.
But maybe 960 is probably more likely. 940 maybe is where we're going to be looking at.
I mean, I think realistically, I think they're just going to put a 720 screen on this anyway, because just battery reasons, to be honest. And also there's huge diminishing returns. Like, because you get a lot of that. You get people saying like, oh, this should put a 4K screen on it. It's like, I don't think people understand that when screens get smaller, 4K is effectively meaningless. Like, if you're using a small screen, the difference you will see between 1080 and 4K is minimal. 4K that's why they only really sell 4K TVs in like 55-inch and above sort of sizes, because you need big, massive screen to see the difference. So yeah, I don't know. I'd like a 1080 one, but yes, it'll probably be 720 again in handheld. But again, we'll see. This news is probably going to come out in about a week or two, so we will be right on it as soon as it does. But yeah, that's the end of the show this week. So yeah, until next time. If you want to catch us on Twitter, we are there at Beat the Sheet. If you want to drop us an email, we'd love to hear from you. We are at beatthesheetpodcast@gmail.com. So until next time, I'm Andy Wood. And yeah, as I said at the top of the show, 75% completed on the sheet, 3/4 done. I think that's a nice little place to leave it.
Yeah, and my name is Josh Jimson, and I've completed 65% of the sheets. I may try to get it up to 70% before I give it all up, but It's a decent effort. I've jumped that from like 22% when it started all those months ago. So not bad going.
Yeah, I think we've both beat over 200 games since we started this. So that sure is something. But anyway, yeah, thanks a lot for listening this week, guys. And yeah, we'll be back next week. So we'll see you then.